Hello and welcome everyone to Digital Transformation Leadership Program Information Session. My name is Rudy, or Rudolf Alat, and I'll be your moderator today. With me, I have a Professor Chris Tucci. You see him on the screen. So soon enough, we'll hear from him and find out more what is this program about and whether this is the right program for you. If you have any questions or comments, you can put them in the chat or Q&A. Don't hesitate. I see that you're trickling in now. As I often say, Zoom security is not as bad. We are checking everybody at the door, making sure you're at the right place. And this is here, Digital Transformation Leadership Program, right? So if you are already with us, if you could put in the chat where you're connecting from, that would be great. So where are you connecting from? All right. First one, Abu Dhabi. Okay. Chris, Saudi. Okay. Alex, London. All right, we got Kent, Nigeria in the house. Okay. All right, so all very international so far. Anybody else?
Panagiotis is from Greece.
Okay, all right. Look, we're not going to send it to your bosses if you are on the beach. Tell us. We're not going to tell them. All right, a couple more people from Nigeria. Great stuff, Middle East and Africa in the house and London. Okay, so we'll see about more people and yes, they join in. Chris is with us. I will make a bit of an introduction about what we're going to do today, but first maybe let's hear from Chris to talk about himself for a bit.
Oh, okay. Always happy to talk about myself. Hi, hi, everybody. Chris Tucci here. Yeah, I'm professor of digital strategy and innovation at Imperial College Business School. And I am also co-director of our new initiative or new campus concept called IX or Imperial X. And we've been pulling together, co-locating people from all across Imperial College interested in artificial intelligence, all different angles on AI, data, digital, machine learning, and so forth. So it's a big project, and we're just getting our new Master of Science launched this year. I've also been the academic director of the Center for Digital Transformation. And in terms of teaching, of course, I've spent a lot of time recording a lot of modules for this program, which you'll see, we'll talk through in a few minutes. But I also teach like tech commercialization, deep tech acceleration, design thinking, digital strategy, innovation management. I also have a new module now called co-creation in AI and robotics, which is more on social studies of technology. I've always been interested in new business models, business model innovation management, how to improve innovation function in big companies and so forth. I think we're going to bring a little bit of that to bear in this program. And I've also used to be a researcher in computer science and actually worked on AI back in the day. And so I've actually had a very strong interest throughout my whole career on digital technologies. So we'll spend a lot of time on that as well in this program. So looking forward to working with you if you choose to join the program.
Fantastic. So I think a few keywords already stand out and you'll hear it throughout the presentation. So transformation, innovation, technology, entrepreneurship, and business. So this is what Chris is all about. I can vouch for this because I worked on this program as well with him in the past and also designing this one. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to give you a bit of an introduction about Imperial College in case you are not from London and don't pass by this every day in South Kensington, of course. Otherwise, we'll then we'll turn into specifics of this program. We'll talk about digital transformation course, our leadership course, and we'll talk about an overview, the curriculum, how your learning experience will look like, and also who is this program for, and any questions you might have. Basically, trying to help you to decide whether this is the right fit for you or not. And then towards the end, also, we'll give you a link to an advisor. You can have a one-on-one discussion after that as well. But hopefully, we'll give you enough information today so you can make a decision. You will have a feel for what this is about, right? First of all, Imperial College Business School Executive Education is part of Imperial College. And as I said before, keywords stand out. So technology, entrepreneurship, and business. And this is #1 university according to QS World University Rankings 2024. So this year already. And obviously, because of the faculty and school position in London, this is a great advantage for the school because of connectivity to governments, to financial services, to technology companies, policymakers, and all of this feeds into research and innovation in the curriculum itself. In detail, here you see Imperial College London is a leader in science and technology. So again, science, technology, entrepreneurship, and business. So again, this is more of a business course than a coding course. So we'll get to that in a second, but obviously all of this needs to be balanced. So similarly, as it's a business school, it's also practical. So you will see a lot of case studies, applications. How is it going to look like in real life, what we're talking about here? So program overview, you see here digital or landscape that we see in business is so intertwined with technology. You can say technology landscape and business landscape is almost like one and the same. 82% of leaders say that it's imperative for organizations to invest in it. But also according to Forbes, 84% of digital transformation initiatives fail because of skill gaps. What are we trying to do here? We assume that you are business leaders, you're senior business leaders, but you would like to upskill a little bit and become maybe more digitally savvy so that you can combine your business acumen that you accumulated over time and talk maybe better with your data scientists, with your IT people, technology firms, and obviously leverage technology to achieve what? To achieve your strategic goals, right? So this is really about, frankly, I'll simplify it, about making money first, maybe then making a world a better place as well, of course, if you have time. I'm kidding. All right. So a program introduction. Maybe Chris already can start talking about this, but we're talking about 20 weeks with 3 breaks and a mixture of pre-recorded lessons and then live sessions, capstone project, industry speakers, exercises, graded assignments, all of this. All of this has been experimented and tested before, and we think this is the best way how to deliver this content to you, senior executives. But I already jumped the gun here, so let's hear from Chris to find out more about this program.
Okay, thanks, Rudy. Yeah, here's a little picture of me in the studio recording some of the
And it's not the same shirt. I've noticed that light pink.
I switched things up a little bit now. I've actually have 2 shirts.
No, I mean mine and yours.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I didn't borrow it. Okay.
That's right. That's right. It is a little bit. It is slightly more pink there, this one here. So basically what we want you to do is we want you to think about digital technologies, where we are currently with them. So that's one of the first things we want you to take away from this program, and to think about some of the business use cases for different digital technologies. We want you to be able to evaluate digital solutions for business problems. So try and match up what's a good digital technology that could help me with my particular problem, and think about how you could then implement that in your own organization. And we'll spend quite a bit of time, we'll go through the details in a few minutes. And then to think about how you can use digital technologies to make a digital transformation in your organization or within your sector, depending on if you're currently employed in a certain company or not. So these are the things we really want you to take away at the end of this whole program. Whom is this for? Basically, we have some different targets here. One of them is going to be aspiring digital transformation leader. So someone with a business background, with the work experience, looking to put structure around the process of having a digital transformation. And as you can imagine right now, the market for these kinds of people is absolutely booming. A C-suite executive. So this is somebody who's already a CIO or a CTO, CEO, and so forth, seeking to make some kind of strategic decisions and make sure that you can actually make a transition to more the digital age. So that's another key persona. Another one will be any kind of senior executive who needs to think about digital strategy. So what should we do about our digital technologies? How should we apply them inside our organization? Then we're also targeting some entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs. So somebody who's either starting a company or someone who's working in a big company that needs to run a corporate venture. And we'll talk a lot about corporate ventures and experimentation in companies, but the kind of person who would be in charge of that and to incorporate digital strategies and technologies into your business model, whether that be for a startup company or for a corporate venture. And last but not least, you could be a consultant or an advisor who just wants to get up to speed on digital technologies and digital transformation trends, and they want to be able to then turn around and use that information for their own clients. So that's a kind of an overview of different kinds of people who would typically be attracted to this program. What are we going to give you here? So we're going to have the contents very fresh. And we've just recently, we've recently recorded everything for this particular program. We're going to let you, this year, we're going to experiment with some specialization. So we're going to, and I'll explain that in a minute. But basically, you can have a little bit more insight into certain sectors that you'll be able to choose from. Then we're actually interviewing people in industry, giving the interviews, putting them online. We've recorded many of these already, and I think they're quite insightful, seeing how people really use these technologies and what they work on and what their career path was and how it could be useful in a certain context. I think that's quite nice. And then I think Rudy's going to discuss this a little bit further later, but we are offering a certificate of completion. We'll give you a certificate from Imperial College Business School Executive Education. We will give you assignments here, give you feedback on selected assignments, and give you some feedback as you go through this process. There's going to be a capstone project. And so the capstone project is going to be, you are going to make a digital transformation plan for your organization or an organization that you know well. And we're going to allow you to synthesize all this material as you build up throughout the whole program. You're going to build your digital transformation implementation plan, and then you can submit that as a capstone at the very end. So you can get some support for advancing your digital transformation career. And we're also going to have access to these videos and the learning materials and everything for an entire year after we start. So I think that's also quite beneficial as a little archive for you to be able to go back and check on something that you may want to listen to again. Okay, let's talk through the curriculum now. I'm going to give you some details here. These are all the different modules, and each module has a series of pre-recorded videos and a bunch of exercises that we've been working on for the last year or so. So it's divided into different parts. So we say 4 parts. And the first part is all about technology. So this is where we're going to go through the most popular and the most common digital technologies. And we're going to explain how they work. And we're going to also talk about the business and economic implications or impact of these technologies. Like, what's the market for the cloud? What's the market for mobile computing, mobile solutions, and so forth. So as you can see here, the ones that we've chosen to highlight, which I feel are the most relevant right now for most people, are cloud and mobile. We'll talk about cloud computing. We'll talk about mobile. How do mobile phones, how do they work? Why is it beneficial to have a mobile solution? We'll discuss the Internet of Things, what it means and how it works. And then we'll move into big data analytics, making decisions, dashboards, understanding data science, and so forth. Then we'll move on to AI, artificial intelligence, and automation. So we'll talk about a lot of different angles. First of all, what is AI? What does it really mean? What is the hype about AI? And what's the reality of AI? But we will also tackle the issue of augmentation versus substitution or something like that. When do we think that people might be automated out of a job? Which careers are most likely to be negatively, or which careers are most vulnerable, we should say? And in there, you'll see, we'll talk about the fact that really almost nobody's job can be completely automated right now. But over time, more and more percentage of our jobs could be automated. We'll then move on, talk about fintech, applying technology in the financial services sector. We'll discuss blockchain, and we'll discuss also blockchain beyond Bitcoin. So it's not just about financial cryptocurrencies, but it's about other uses of blockchain as well. And then we'll go into other emerging technologies, such as drones, advanced manufacturing, and so forth. And we'll talk about some of the current topics in emerging technologies. So that's part 1. So part 1 is really all about digital technologies and how they work. Part 2 is about applying digital technologies to your strategy. And so we'll go through what are the sources of value in a digital world? What does it mean? What does value mean? How does digital change? Does digital mean we need to throw out our whole playbook, which I don't believe? Or how can we tweak our business playbook because of digital technologies? And we'll just go through some of those key points there. We'll talk about implementing digital transformation. Is something that we'll get into a lot more later on, but we give you some overall framework for implementing a digital transformation and get you started on that, because that's going to help you with your capstone. We will discuss platforms, ecosystems, going from pipelines to platforms and so forth. I'll also have a little lecture in there about why you shouldn't go too crazy with platforms, although they are useful and it's good to think about how they work. Then we'll talk about business models, business model innovation, and business model innovation specifically for the digital age. So we'll talk through a little bit about new business models that are enabled by digital technologies or have become more popular because of digital technologies. Then we'll move on and discuss privacy and security. They're not exactly the same. You need to have security to guarantee privacy. And so we will walk through that. How does that work? We'll discuss all kinds of data breaches and all the different ways that you can be hacked and what you should do from a point of view of not only a personal point of view, but also corporate point of view to reduce your chances of being attacked, let's just say, in the digital space. And then we'll start our first pass at organizing for internal innovation. We'll talk a little bit about experimentation and the importance of having corporate ventures. And that leads us right into part 3 here. Part 3 is going to be, we call it leadership skills for the digital age. So we're going to get more into the role of the leader and how you can pull off a digital transformation. So the first thing that you might want to consider is, how do you nurture an innovation culture? So what are some of the key points to think of here when you are actually involved in trying to change the culture of your company? And that goes to the personal level, and that also goes to the organization level. We will go through a list of why most digital transformations fail and what are some of the key, I think there's something like 8 or 9 elements in this list, and basically saying, try and avoid these 9 big mistakes that a lot of companies make that cause their digital transformation to go off the rails and not work out the way they wanted it to. We'll then go into managing people and teams. We'll talk a little bit about what does that mean. We'll talk about self-managing teams and how does a manager of a self-managing team work. And typically a manager is going to be responsible for a self-managing team, but that doesn't mean you should be a micromanager either. So we're going to discuss some of these things. How do you manage experimentation portfolio? How do you think about these things? Then we'll move on and talk about what is the C-suite? What does it mean? Who's in the boardroom and why do they care? And what do you need to know to convince people? Because when you go through a digital transformation, you're going to have to think about all the stakeholders, and you're going to have to convince all of them to get on board with this thing. If you don't do that, someone's going to resist you. And so it makes a lot of sense to understand who's in the boardroom, what motivates them, and how you can convince them. And then we'll talk about new leadership competencies, so technological competencies, ethical competencies, and so forth, that you now need a little bit more of, that we're in this sort of digital age. And then we will also discuss more details on executing organizational change. So we'll talk about the change management process. How does it work? What are some of the principles of change management that you need to apply? Because sometimes what people do is they just try to rush in on a digital transformation and they don't treat it seriously. They think it's like updating your spreadsheet software or something like that. And it's definitely not updating your spreadsheet software. So how do we think about this now? If we need to think about it from a big organizational point of view, realizing there's probably going to be a lot of resistance. And finally here, part 4 is a specialization module. I mentioned this already. We're going to give you the option of, you can drill into any of these. One's on finance and financial services, how digital technologies are changing that. Second one's on healthcare, and how digital technologies are affecting our healthcare system and our software services and so forth. And the last one is on sustainability and how we can use digital technologies to have a more sustainable portfolio for a company. So that's pretty much an overview of the entire curriculum.
So pause here for a second to see if you have any questions. We, of course, will have plenty of time for Q&A at the end, but if you have questions now, you can drop them in the Q&A. or raise your hand and we can let you speak, of course, as well, as you wish.
Or put it in the chat.
Is it all clear so far?
Nice.
Okay.
You can always ask a question at the end too. Fine.
All right. So all makes sense for now. Okay, great. Great. Okay.
Okay, just to talk a little bit about some of the cases here. Yeah, we've peppered all the various modules here with different case studies to help give you some insights into how these things are actually being applied. For example, we have LinkedIn, and we will talk about this, but just to give you a little preview of it, about it, you probably get these notices for jobs for you. And I can't help notice that these things are quite pathetic. And this is a big company. This company is owned by Microsoft. They know everything about you. And half the world is on LinkedIn. So why is it that they can't give us a better recommendation? And I'm still getting, and this is, even fairly recently, I'm getting quite bad suggestions for jobs that I would never, ever consider in a million years. And I think it's worth thinking about this case and trying to understand and even make some suggestions about how you could improve their particular algorithm there for what they're doing. Netflix, we'll talk a little bit about how they used crowdsourcing to come up with a better solution for recommendations for films. We'll talk about Kodak and the idea of, actually, Kodak was one of the first companies to develop a digital camera, a hybrid camera. And yet somehow in the end, they weren't able to survive the changeover to digital photography. So it's a quite interesting case, and we'll go through that. We'll talk a little bit about Alipay and some of the financial services innovations happening in China, which is really interesting, and may eventually come here too. We're still using credit cards. So we're now mostly cashless, I agree, but we're nowhere near where China was 5 years ago in terms of some of the other things that are happening. In terms of Microsoft here, we talk about their metaverse. We'll discuss the metaverse. And here's an example of Microsoft and their metaverse strategy. And then they were actually sued in the UK and in the EU for antitrust. And so how that influenced Microsoft's strategy. So you can see we have some big companies. These are not the only cases, but there's a mix of things in different sectors to help make it more real. And you can try and think about how we could apply some of the things that we're discussing to a case in another sector.
All right, great. So Kathy actually had a question coming back to specializations. She's asking if you could do healthcare and sustainability as it goes hand in hand. So I think she would like to do two of those. Is there any way to make that more than one?
I don't know exactly how the platform works, but I don't think anybody's going to stop you from from taking more content. So I think for those of you who are interested, I think for some people, they want to look at least one. And then we can also say that you have a specialization, that you took a specialization. But I don't think there's anything to prevent people from doing all three if they really want to go through and watch a few more interviews and a few more videos about the topic.
And then we touched on the digital certificate. Of course, this is a digital transformation leadership program. So the certificate is digital. I just wanted to stress that as well. So you won't get anything in mail, no paper, but you will get the digital certificate, which is also verifiable. So in case you are looking for a new job and people do background checks on you, they can check this is not just some PDF that you created in a garage, but it's verifiable. It doesn't mean that it necessarily is created on blockchain. We can talk about that, right? As Chris said, not every business needs to be a platform. Not everything needs to be on blockchain either, but many things can be. So we'll talk about pros and cons. This is the benefit of the program, right? The Chris is neutral party. So he can give you the balanced view about what works, what doesn't work. You can make up your mind for yourself. But unlike plethora of information on the internet where you don't know how it's tainted by somebody's sales objectives, right? So digital certificate also is something that a lot of people showcase on their LinkedIn profile. It gets a lot of traction. Happy to promote you as well if you want. So as a recap, it's 20 weeks. We think it takes you maybe 4 to 6 hours a week. It's self-paced learning combined with online live sessions. It's something that it gives you enough of a technical knowledge, but it doesn't require any prerequisites, and enough technical knowledge to be able to speak the language as a senior business leader that you are, right? And moving towards emerging technologies, any sort of exponential or digital exponential technologies, digital strategy. And it's a very comprehensive program because it's also about how to pitch, how to work on your leadership skills, how to work on obstacles when it comes to pushing through a digital transformation. You will hear it from Chris jokingly saying that the technology is sometimes the easiest part of the puzzle. The people are the most difficult, right? So we'll cover that as well. The cultural change. A lot of people talk about cultural resistance. So this will be also there. We'll talk about case studies and industry examples. We have plenty of great examples, topical from different industries. So this is industry agnostic, is another key term to take away from this. And there will be practitioners. So you'll have an industry guest speaker. You can also learn from your classmates. Another thing is when I went once for an exchange, a professor there told us, you didn't come here to learn from books. You came here to learn from other people. Similarly here, because it's online, actually we can amplify it even more, and you can be based in many different continents, all of them, and learn from one another. You will have a certificate from Imperial College, as I said, and it's a top-ranked school, and when it comes to technology in entrepreneurship and business. You see the fee here. Don't get discouraged by this. If you complete it today, actually, you can get a discount. Here's the discount, EMER 100. You can scan the QR code. One of the few good things in the last 5 years living in the online world and being disrupted is now people use a QR code everywhere. So if you scan this QR code, it will lead you to this link where you can apply. You can get the brochure if you want to get another way of looking at these things, or you can book the time with an advisor. So in the chat, also, my colleagues put the link for Calendly. So you can talk to an advisor, outreach team, and you can talk about this. Organizational questions, yes, Kingjal, I think, or Deepika, you can type it in the chat whether you can invoice your organizations. I think it really depends on how you're set up at work. But we have many participants which are sponsored by their companies. Depends how their policies work, right? In my case, I took once a course and they told me, you need to pay yourself. And if you complete the certificate, then we reimburse you. But in case you take the course, but you don't complete it, then we don't pay. So that's one way of doing things, but there may be others. Chris, any other comments to add to what I just said when it comes to recap? What will be your key takeaways?
Okay, actually, I think this has been we've given out all the information, but I did want to add about the certificate and the networking, which is that I noticed that people started tagging me on LinkedIn in the prior generation. So this is a completely brand new program, but in the prior program that I did on a much smaller version of this, people were posting their certificates online. And you can look me up on LinkedIn and connect with me, and you can find some of those older ones if you like. And what I noticed was interesting was that people in the program with that person were coming on and interacting. And I got the feeling that it was a quite good sense of community, that they actually had done a very good job of networking. And so in addition to having the certificate, and in addition to showing everybody on LinkedIn, I also noted that there was some quite good dynamic going on LinkedIn itself with people who had taken the prior generation of this. You can probably find some of these examples online if you go on LinkedIn and look for me. I'm CL Tucci. Thanks a lot.
Great stuff. Fawad has a question. How much this program focuses on AI, its practical use in business, examples, etc.?
Okay, as you could see from the outline there. Yeah, there we go. So basically, I actually have entirely new videos recorded on generative AI. So like some of the latest things that are happening there. But as you can see, even Internet of Things is somehow throwing off a lot of data. We talk about data analytics and how data science works and what does it mean and what is machine learning and supervised machine learning. And then we also go into what's AI in general, so the more general version of AI. And then we go into what is generative AI and how does it work? And what are the different ways that generative AI is being used right now? And then we'll talk about automation and vulnerable areas in it. So basically, I think these three modules here are interrelated with each other and should give you a fairly good idea about different ways of thinking about AI, how it works, what are some of the economic and business implications. And then, as I mentioned, we have additional material on generative AI and also how much is generative AI boosting economic growth right now and over the next 10 years. So I think there should be some fairly decent, I think you should end up with a fairly decent understanding of AI by the time. Of course, there are a lot of other things too. There's the cloud computing and so forth. How does cloud computing work? There's fintech and blockchain and so forth. So it's not all, and metaverse. Although let's face it, generative AI is going to actually help the metaverse too. And we'll discuss that in the program. So I think you should have a fairly good understanding of the basic principles of AI, how they work, and what are some of the business implications and some of the opportunities there that are available because of AI. Hope that helps.
Okay. Panagiotis is asking, stakeholder management, would the learnings apply to mid-level management as well?
Yes, 100%. It's not just about the board. The board's important because the board is typically pushing on companies to do something digital, right? So I think and sometimes even a mid-level manager will be invited to a board meeting to talk with the board about projects in digital transformation. So I feel like there's a strong element of it's good to understand boards and how they work. But you're right to say that we have to think about all the different stakeholders, and we will discuss that in one of the modules. Go through a list and seeing you have investors, you have your employees, you have other people in your information technology data group and so forth. And so you need to make a plan for how you can approach each of these. So when we talk about stakeholder management, we're not just talking about managing up, but we're talking about how do you get everybody on board. And that includes, and we'll say this over and over again, I probably said this 5 times in there, but you have to address employees' fears of being made redundant because of AI and digital technologies. And if you don't address it directly, people will just not go along. And I think that's also quite an important factor. So I think there's a managing up part of it, and I spent a lot of time on that, but there's also the employees, there's the peers and so forth, investors. And so you need to bring everybody on board when you're trying to get this thing through, especially in a big company.
And Pukundran's asking if participants also have access to London campus or library if they're based locally in London. The program is the same for everyone, so it doesn't make a difference if you're in London or not. But of course, there is an advantage because there may be public events where you can participate, and Chris may be speaking, you can come in and grab him after that. But other than that, it's the same approach for everyone. Everything will be on the course website, which you need. And also in live sessions, you get additional resources depending on what you ask for and things like that. But it doesn't, what I joke about is sometimes it doesn't help you to take a subway and have a coffee with Chris and trying to get a better grade for capstone, anything like this. It's we're past this.
Yeah, we will advertise other events, so that's for sure.
Absolutely.
But
so you're welcome. You're welcome, but it's when it comes to course, it's the same for everyone if you're based in Nigeria or in London. Emeka is asking, what types of roles will someone in an organization after this be learning?
So I think some people are staying in their current position, but are just being able to think about digital. And then other people are thinking more aspirational, like I have a technical background, I'm already a manager, I could be the CTO or something like that, or Chief Innovation Officer. So I think that from that point of view, it's a wide variety because depending, at the beginning we had these 5 different personae, and if we think about these different personae, they all have different needs. But I think a lot of people are thinking about a promotion here and being able to have some digital skills and digital awareness with some business background is a very highly desirable dossier application. So that makes you a very attractive candidate for promotion inside your company. It could be a project manager, it could be a corporate venture entrepreneur, it could be some kind of digital transformation lead. And then you have your higher level positions as well. So depending on where you're starting from and what your goals are, I think it'll open up some different opportunities. It's hard to state exactly which roles because we have people from all different backgrounds taking this program. But most of them are looking for some kind of upskilling and possible promotion or mobility options at the end. And so I think it will be helpful. And you can also look on LinkedIn for some of the things that people talk about here after they've taken the module.
All right, then Emeka is asking if there are SMEs as a part of the faculty for live sessions, tech SMEs. You will have learning facilitators. I went back to that page. So we'll hold office hours. So what does that mean? If you go back to your college times or university times, maybe you were waiting for a tutor or faculty to have a one-on-one discussion. And if I could see you, I would ask you, raise your hands if you went there to argue about the grades or have questions about the content. But so in this course, we'll talk about the content. And we'll do it in a group setting. So we'll do it virtually, we'll do it in a group setting. You should ideally see the videos or watch the videos from Chris, go through the assignments, and then when we have questions, we can have a discussion together with the learning facilitator. And they will also bring some additional material as well. But the course is not technical, right? So we won't go as deep as let's open an account on GitHub and show me your work on GitHub and your coding skills, etc. But we'll have industry speakers, right? In the videos, they are pre-recorded. So when it comes to, we'll be learning facilitators like myself, where I worked in banking for many years. And last few years, I've been working with startups, advising, investing in them. And I host a Voice of FinTech podcast as well. I've worked on this course as well. So I very much like the topics of digital transformation and change management. But we won't go to, let's say, coding level.
I think also to add to this answer, so typically for the live sessions, it would be, for example, me and Rudy. And so far, I think Rudy may have invited a few people in for some of the live sessions, but typically we don't have another person in on these live sessions. Like the idea of, and we have talked to some startup entrepreneurs. I haven't specifically targeted somebody from an SME from the point of view, like a small manufacturer, for example, for interviews. That's actually a fairly interesting idea.
I think she meant the subject matter experts, though, on technology.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah.
I thought you meant small and medium enterprises. Yeah, you're right. There are different ways of interpreting that question. But yeah, the subject matter expert, for example, Rudy is considered a subject matter expert. I would definitely endorse him for that. And typically we'll be there together for these live sessions.
And if there is interest, we can possibly schedule an industry speaker as well. As Chris said, on occasion, we have done this in the past. So we also had, both of us have great contacts in the digital transformation space. A lot of people who have great experience, and you may want to hear from them. But as I said, it's a business, it's strategy, together with innovation, entrepreneurship. These would be the keywords. We won't have somebody to have a deep dive coding session on Python or anything like that in this course.
Good. Yeah, agreed.
Alex is asking, I'm a portfolio director managing a technology and change team looking to advance to transformation direct chief transformation officer. Looks like this will be a good course to support my progression. Chris, maybe you want to comment.
Let me just say thank you very much for the comment. I think so too. I think this would be quite useful. It just, again, depends on where you're starting from, where you want to end up. But I feel like most people have said at the end that they felt more comfortable talking about technology topics with people. And then they have a better also intuition about organization management and leadership. So I think those things speak to a chief transformation officer type position or a digital transformation leader type position. And so I agree with your assessment, and I think it should be useful for you. Yeah, definitely.
It's a perfect customer persona example. So
right.
For everybody else who doesn't believe it, we didn't coordinate it with Alex. Okay?
That's right. Alex is a real person. We didn't actually put a fake comment in there.
It's perfect.
Thank you very much, Alex.
So maybe a curveball for you, though, Chris, following up on that generative AI, I hope not. If somebody would like to use ChatGPT to write the capstone, how do we deal with that?
Actually, I would recommend that you do it. But the thing is that most of this ChatGPT is great for first drafts. I would never trust I would never trust the output of ChatGPT for anything that requires fact checking, nor would I run it through and just submit it. You could do it if you want, but typically it's very shallow. Even the later versions of it are quite shallow. So yeah, of course, if you want to try it, play around with it, I think it would be great. If you want to generate a first draft and then use it to tweak and improve, that's a good learning experience. You can learn something from that and it'll be useful for you. So that's my only warning about it, is I wouldn't believe everything. We'll talk more about it, much more about it in the videos and whatnot, but I wouldn't believe everything that comes out of ChatGPT.
Yes. Yeah, I tested it, and unfortunately, the fact checking was completely absent. So it sounded nice, but it was
Right.
factually so incorrect that anyone
Yeah.
on the street would give you the answer, but unfortunately not ChatGPT.
It's made to sound nice. That's the whole purpose. It should sound nice. That's criterion number one. Whether it's true or not is way down the list.
Hopefully it will change, right? A lot of
It'll
companies are
get
working
better.
on enterprise
It'll
grade solutions, right? Because otherwise it's not useful to them.
Yeah, it'll get better. It's great at summarizing documents and whatnot.
But we'll have a live session with Chris on this, I'm sure, talking about how somebody wrote that the conversation with ChatGPT left them disturbed. So don't get disturbed by ChatGPT. It doesn't think. Alex is asking about, can you use Creedly or similar to post a certificate on LinkedIn and allow people to validate? I think that the certificate provider that we're using basically achieves these goals. So you should be able to verify it. I'm not sure necessarily whether that's integrated with LinkedIn, but definitely facilitates background checks.
Yeah, I don't know about Credly. I'm not sure if it's the actual one, but anyways, it's something like that. Indeed.
So any other questions for Chris? Otherwise, as I mentioned, you have a QR code. You can click and schedule a call with an advisor. I also talk about applications. So here is the brochure. Okay, so Deepika also put in the chat, again, a link how to either apply or to talk to an advisor. So have a look at this. You will also get these slides. You will get the recording, and then you can decide, and hopefully we'll see you soon on the program.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing many of you there. Thanks a lot, guys, for showing up today.
See, one more. All right, so Alex is in. Okay,
We'll have to
Gregory.
have someone follow up.
Okay, I don't know whether the program is already open. Okay, so you said you paid already, and you don't see your profile on the course website. That we will deal with once we had the orientation session, which will be very soon. But in any case, once you're on the course website, we have a help or ask a question button, and there is a dedicated team behind the scenes, the whole army, that will help you to have a very smooth learning experience. So if there are any hiccups, they will help you. So program support, help, or ask a question. Or once the program is live, the learning facilitator will be there as well to ask any content-related questions. Okay, so Sapna came back. She says the profile will be active once the program starts. It hasn't happened yet.
Perfect.
Okay. Any other final questions? Okay, I will sound like a used car salesman, but I really think this is a great program. And as Chris said, it's fresh, right? It really touches on all the key points that you need to be aware of when you want to embark on the digital transformation, right? So it's not only about technologies, figuring out what's hot, what's the buzzword, right? It's also about execution. And then sometimes we need to look in the mirror and say, do we have capabilities for this? And that's why we have a leadership skills for digital age module as well. And then, of course, some of you want to go deeper into some of the maybe more specialized industries or regulated industries. That's why we picked finance and healthcare. And sustainability is now not a fad, but it's a mainstream, whether you talk about management or whether you talk about investment. So we also offer that as well. So thank you so much for all your time, for great questions, engagement. Thank you, Professor Chris Tucci, for guiding us through it. And we will
Thanks
see
a
you
lot.
soon.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.